that's another thing that you're mindful of. You're seeing how you can help customers through that, encourage them to save more, and seeing what does that change for financial services. After a lot of what we would call globalization, openness, I think society is kind of tightening up, looking inwards.
Welcome to the Sonya Barlow Show. My name is Sonya Barlow, and I am the host of this very authentic audio and video-based podcast. Ultimately, I wanted to interview ordinary people who are becoming extraordinary all over the world. It's me, my camera, and my recorder sharing real-life, authentic interviews with people on the ground. I really wanted to create something which doesn't necessarily exist on the internet today, and that's no noise, no clutter, to the point conversations with very cool people all over the world. Most of our content, if not all of it, is directed by you, our listener, our watcher, and our audience member. So thank you. If you have any questions that you want to answer, if you want to be a part of the show, or if you're just interested in where we're traveling next, drop me a line, hello@sonyabarlow.co.uk or @SonyaBarlowUK. I won't keep you any longer because we have amazing interviews lined up from people all over the world. So let's get straight into the chat. Jaidev, thank you for giving me your time.
Thank you for having me.
You're a very busy person. So you landed in Lisbon last night and you're off to India tonight.
Later tonight, yes.
How's that working out for your loyalty points?
I unfortunately have to fly different airlines, so I don't think I'm blanking the loyalty points too much.
Oh no, you don't have a favourite?
I usually end up flying British Airways simply because of Terminal 5. It's convenient. Yeah.
I think British Airways is great except the food.
Yeah, but at least it's reliable, usually on time. Hopefully it'll be on time today because my connections are right.
Absolutely. So you are the CEO of Zopa.
Yeah.
Is that a heavy title to carry?
Whew, I've been carrying it for 8 years now, so I guess could get used to it. But I think I'm lucky to have a great team. I'm lucky to have very supportive investors. So and actually supportive board. So between them, they do take off a lot of the work.
And what's a typical morning routine for CEO?
I am not a very morning person. This is an unusually early start.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm a very morning person. So this must be too much for you.
Yeah, I'm usually I like to drop my son to school, then have a cup of tea, and then get into the office a bit late, typically 9:30.
The fact that you run a fintech business.
Yeah.
How have you seen the industry change in the last 5-10 years, especially now that we have a term like fintech?
Yeah.
Right, before it was finance and tech, and it was very two separate worlds.
Yeah.
Now it's, to some extent, it feels a bit trendy. Like anyone is claiming to be a fintech.
So, I think I've been in the fintech industry, if you will, for the last 9 years with Zopa, and before that I was in the finance industry with Capital One, which is one of the original disruptors, if you will. So, been through that period, and often Zopa, which was founded in 2005 actually, long before I joined it, was often called the first fintech in the UK back in 2005. So we've gone through phases. When I joined in 2014, I think all the way up to 2019, 2020, it was the vogue, right? It was going to take over the world. There were unicorns being created left, right, and center. There was probably less discipline, both from companies and investors. And that has dramatically changed over the last year or two, particularly after interest rates went up and inflation and so on, where I think fintech still has a tremendous future ahead of it, but people are more realistic about what is possible, and and are also more discerning about what business models to follow and invest in, which I think probably is a good change for the long term.
What I'm also hearing you say is that there's a lot of space for disruption in fintech, which is really exciting. Now, I'm going to be biased. I identify as a woman.
Yes.
So for me, it's really important to understand how we can possibly get more diversity, be that gender, ethnicity, heritage, culture, social mobility, into a space that is ready for disruption, given that we don't have fintech as a subject at school, given that we don't have financial literacy, given that there's no real technology subject except computer science. How do you think we can diversify a sector which is ready to be both diversified and disrupted?
So if I think about it, as compared to the industry we are disrupting, the financial services industry, fintech is far more diverse, right? The reason it exists is that it sees that there is a gap for that customers are not being well served. And a lot of fintechs, if you actually look at the people there, tend to recruit from a very wide variety of industries and have a variety of business models, and that has meant that there is more diversity. If you look at, for example, our leadership team, we've got out of 9 people, 4 are women, and if I look across the organization, we are about 45% of our workforce is women. So I think fintech as an industry is doing a good job of doing it. In terms of how to get it even better, again, I think we need a few things. So we need industry partnerships with universities, as well as places where we can get to career switch. So for example, we have a partnership with Code First Girls, which allows us to actually hire women into technology, which is a hard thing, where people have done something and they want to switch, they do a micro degree and can come in. So that's one of the partnerships we have.
That's great. After this, I will send you a partnership proposal for the LMF network. We'll get onto that in a second.
I've also known, for example, a few investors who have partnered with organizations like the Imperial University. And again, are trying to get more of that. In terms of if you are a woman and or of any background for that matter and want to enter fintech, your best chances are either get more into tech and actually do computer science, and that'll definitely get you in there, or do something in statistics, maths. Again, I think that's a good place to start with. So those are the degrees that can get you in, but definitively companies are partnering with other organizations as well to get people talented.
And what I'm hearing you say there is it's a collaborative.
It has to be.
It has to be a collaboration between a number of entities to make sure that you are not only getting the best people in, but you're able to retain them.
Exactly.
Because of course, if you lose talent, that's 1.5 times their salary. That's a lot of expenditure.
Probably more than that,
for a business.
Yeah.
Right? But with the new generation of talent, they are, to some extent, more into values. They want to, 85% of them want to work with sustainably led companies. They want to be disruptive. They want to work for organizations that really believe in D&I and kind of, practice what they preach. At the same time, there is a fear of failure. There's a fear of rejection. There is I'm not going to apply, or I'm not going to follow up because actually they already ghosted me and that company doesn't want to work with me. That company doesn't care about me. The new generation of talent, what would be some of your words of wisdom to them especially, who they want to get into these sectors, but they're also afraid that they're not good enough, or they don't have the skills that are necessary, or with all due respect, TikTok looks like everything is successful right now. So they're not living the day in the life. Which is why one of my first questions was, what does your day in the life look like? Because it's quite realistic.
So I think, thankfully today there is a lot more information available on the internet, which can actually let you understand the companies a bit better. I think Glassdoor is a great source for some true and authentic reviews. I think the values that companies state tell you, they of course will only state their positive values, but even what they choose will tell you a bit more. I think companies need to do more in terms of showing the role models that they have, so that they can bring in, people can see there is someone like me out there. I think people like us need to go tell our stories, a bit more. I've come from India, grew up there, my mother was a nurse, my father was a kind of a government servant and so on, and I've made my own journey through this. And I think there are many such stories, and if we are more open about it, then I think that will again welcome the new talent.
I agree. One thing that I'm really passionate about is mentorship, and I think mentorship is absolutely life-changing. Now, contrary to beliefs, I don't think speed mentorship works in the same way, because you're obviously talking to someone for 5-10 minutes. It's just a quick career conversation. But mentorship, being able to find someone that you truly trust, you believe, a trusted source that can help you with your goals and your guidelines, is I think one thing which can really democratize both the industry but also the individuals coming into the industry. Can you talk to me about maybe how you've had mentors that have helped you in your life, if you have had, or also how you are a mentor to other people? And that might just be your kids and your family.
No, I think I've been very lucky, particularly through my professional career. Very helpful bosses or mentors. I think I remember that my first boss I had, I was a Turkish guy, and he was incredibly ambitious. So whenever we would think about something, he'd be like, "But have you thought? What about if it made it even bigger and even bigger?" And I think a year and a half that I worked with him was incredibly empowering, but also liberating, because you think you can do something, and he'll be like, no. What about pushing the boundaries, right? And really helped us. Helped me. And it's something I question myself is like, if this is the budget we're setting for, is that all we can achieve? Is there more? Sometimes people think that thus I'm being unreasonable, but what I've seen is that once you kind of put that question out there, people find great ways of finding the answer, but often don't ask the question big enough. So that's what was one great experience. Another boss who actually is today on our board, a guy called Michael, he was very helpful in really, I went with him. I went from working for having a team of 10 to having a team of 300.
Wow. Okay.
That was that was kind of one fine day. He was like, "Why don't you do this?" And I'm like, "Really? I've never done something like that." I literally laughed because I thought he was joking about it, and he really could have held my hand through that and saying, here's how I made the transition. Here are some things you can do, and that was again very helpful in really building my kind of leadership journey. And and again, I think there are many others who've been helpful through similar things. So, I mean, I've always been thankful, and in that sense, try to give it back. As a company, we run a mentorship program where pretty much all my leadership team and people who report to them actually have mentors.
That's amazing.
Because I think that helps kind of accelerate. And it's also actually, to be honest, it's in our self-interest, right?
Yes.
Because when you see, we are a growing company and we need people to grow and develop, and the best way to achieve that is through that one-on-one.
Absolutely. I mean, mentorship increases your chance of promotion by 5 times, and it increases your likelihood of staying in a company by at least 18 months, which is a big business win.
Exactly.
So far, we've spoken about mentorship, we've spoken about the disruption in fintech and industry, but we've also got to know you a little bit. What do you, as a CEO of, a disruptive bank, of a fintech, of one that has truly changed the way that the industry is, or the service, the product offerings and so forth, what do you think are maybe the top 3 trends that we should be aware of over the next 5, 10 to 10 years?
Start with technology. Of course, AI, everybody's talking about it. I think at Zopa we have been using what we call predictive AI for a long time, since 2015. But now with generative AI, which kind of creates text, pictures, and so on and so forth, is going to really give an opportunity to properly customize not just products, which I think we've been able to do to a large extent, products pricing on an individual basis, but I think what it gives you the opportunity is actually to customize the whole experience. I think that will be exciting. I think it still will probably take 2 to 3 years for consumers to be able to get the full benefit of it, but it's something that we are really excited about. So that's one. 2, boring thing, but interest rates.
Boring, but actually really important for the rest of us who are trying to figure out how to make a living and get a mortgage at this point, right?
Exactly, and I think for a lot of the younger generation, they have never seen an interest rate of 4 to 5%, right?
No.
So people are just used to that 0 or 1, or the mortgage needs to be 1.5. And for better or worse, for the next at least 4 to 5 years, we're probably going to be in that 3 to 5% interest rate, and that does change. I think one good thing is that it does reward saving. So I think for all of us, I think we just need to go back to the fact that money is not anymore free, and how do we start building some savings behaviors, because I think that'll kind of help society actually in the long term. So that's another thing that we're mindful of. You're seeing how we can help customers through that, encourage them to save more, and seeing what does that change for kind of financial services in general. The third is a more, I think, worrying thing, which is after a lot of what we would call globalization, openness, I think society is kind of tightening up, looking inwards, and for people like me, my skin color, so and my children growing up, it does scare me at times.
Of course.
Though we do have a British Indian Prime Minister, so I don't know.
Well, this is probably not the discussion to have around UK politics right now, given today Tuesday and what's happened in the world in Monday is
exactly. But so that's another trend which would be, I think, important that people like us are speaking out against and doing whatever we can do to get back the world into more openness and more tolerance.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. You spoke about generative AI. Have you used ChatGPT?
Yes.
What do you use it for? Like on a personal and professional level?
I end up using Bing more than ChatGPT because it's easier to get to. But on a personal level, I've asked it many questions, including trying to write a poem that's funny about my 14-year-old.
Oh gosh, okay.
It's a good enough job on that. On a professional level, we've actually done quite a few things with it. I remember once we were actually putting together a bid for a company, and we wanted to write a kind of a letter on top of that, and we got ChatGPT to write the first draft.
Oh, that's really good.
We didn't give any details of the company. We just said, write something like this. And there was one example of doing it. I know that my CFO, for example, very often when he has an accounting question,
you'll just go in ChatGPT.
As the first question.
Do you think generative AI is cheating?
No. I think, ultimately having information easily available to everybody. This is, I think, huge, to your point of democratizing things. It's a huge thing, right? So growing up in India, I think you had to get library memberships and find books and,
Don't you miss
just
that
to get
life?
to information.
Don't you miss picking up a book and smelling the cover and
I still have a paper. I still have a paper book that I read. But sometimes when you need information,
absolutely,
being hidden behind paywalls and not having access to it, I think just limit people's development, and having that more freely available is amazing.
Have you ever Googled yourself?
Yes.
And what did you find? Is there anything challenging? Did you have to go to your team to be like, we need to get rid of this?
No, I haven't seen. I'm not very active on social media, so it's mostly stuff like this.
Absolutely. It's just interviews that showed up. I googled you this morning.
Unless you found something that I should.
No, I didn't. No, I googled you this morning. Yeah. I'm a big Googler. Okay. I think when you have a public profile, I think it's really important to know what is out there in the media. Absolutely. One thing I found really interesting that I found this morning when I googled you was there was an article that said Jaidev is emotional about the change of banking. And I was like, I don't really ever see men having terms like emotional attached to them. So I just found that a little bit interesting. And it wasn't anything like disruptive. I think it was more clickbait. It was the fact that Zopa transitioned during the pandemic and you had to change your services and now you've kind of evolved. And I was like, what a weird and yet wonderful clickbait title for you to have to kind of, check into. Nothing more worrying than that, don't worry.
Thank you.
It should be okay. One question I love to know, one thing I love to know, just to get to know you a little bit more. Of course you work for Zopa, and in the past you worked for Capital One, but if you could have founded a tech business, or any business actually, what would you have founded and why?
Today it might be medtech. I've always been interested in how the human body works. My mother actually wanted me to be a doctor, but never quite felt that I could deal with that level of responsibility.
And how does she feel now that you're a CEO?
She was very happy when she found that out. But and I've always been, math has always been an obsession. So and particularly with medtech and where we have with genomics and the use of AI in figuring out more personalized medicine. That thing would be fascinating. Maybe I'll do that one of these days.
And then you go from like CEO to doctor. Your parents, your family be happy.
I won't be a doctor. I just figured out how to use AI, which is something that there are lots of companies doing it already.
Of course.
That would be the thing I would do if I had to start again.
And you've made a really great point throughout this discussion, both about your heritage, your story, you as a person, the fact that we need to be more open to sharing us as role models, our scenarios, the circumstances we've been through, also the degrees that we've taken, or the alternative education, how we've moved into the system and how you progressed. Yeah. So how would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Oops.
Yeah.
3 words.
Well, that's a really basic interview question, and you're the CEO, so you should...
I haven't interviewed for 9 years.
For this one.
I've only changed 1 job, so I haven't interviewed too often. 3 words. Give me a second. Analytical. Empathetic. Positive.
If you want to be a CEO, those are the skills that you need. Basically, is what you're telling us, which is great.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I think that's who I am.
No, but I love that for you. And I had this question, because we're at Web Summit. I went to a dinner last night, and one of the questions that really stood out to me was, describe your job in 3 words.
Right.
How would you describe being a CEO at Zopa in 3 words? I can tell you mine. I literally said, figuring it out.
Right.
That is what it is to be a CEO or a founder. It's just you're figuring stuff out. I think that's literally your job summed up in 3 words. How would you sum it up if you had to on a fly?
I think that's one thing. A different thing I would say is motivating great people.
That's great. I love the fact you did that in 20 seconds. You were like, yes, that's the one. Jaidev, I am really grateful for you taking time out for this conversation. I appreciate how busy you are. So far, we've discussed the power of mentorship, connecting with the right people, but just engaging in different spaces, figuring out what the skills are and not being afraid to do the work. When it comes to the future of tech, thinking about AI, thinking about interest, and just keeping up to date, be that with trends, news.
Yeah.
But most importantly, what I've taken away from this is if you are in a position of power, it's really important for you to storytell who you are and where you come from so that other people can see what they can be too. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope that this is one that you'll remember. I think it was a little bit more weird and wonderful than maybe what you're used to.
Well, this was great. Thank you. It's a great start to the day.
Appreciative.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.